Spirit 105.3, hi.
Hi, Erica. This is Stacy with Convoy of Hope.
Stacy, thank you for your time. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Well, fine. Very thankful to be connecting with you. Where are you right now?
I am actually currently back in our offices at our headquarters in Springfield, Missouri. I was on the ground in Kerrville yesterday, but back here today trying to just keep things running.
Yeah, I'm glad you're home. What did you see yesterday in Kerrville?
Well, of course, this is the same things that most folks have been seeing on TV, the destruction, the riverbanks completely washed out, trees down, debarked, all of the things that you've been seeing from the aerial shots on TV. You kind of saw it in person, if you will.
Yeah. And what does the mood feel like when you're there?
There's a sense of hope in the air. You've got lots of folks there to help, organizations like Convoy of Hope and others. You've got lots of local church volunteers that are, out and want to help. Churches are partnering with us and doing distribution and those type of things. So they're able to minister to people in those moments. And so, we regularly see after any disaster where, just something tangible. There's a lot of things that, you and I may take for granted on a daily basis, like, a hygiene item or a bottle of water or, a granola bar. But in those moments when you've got somebody that have been affected by a disaster, maybe they've lost everything, and a hygiene kit, a bottle of water, a granola bar, something to eat, it can really change their day and really kind of help show them that, there is hope and we can get through this.
Absolutely. Was there somebody you met in Kerrville who you're still thinking about, who you took into your heart?
The local pastors, met with several pastors yesterday while we were on the ground, and just listening to them talk about what they're doing and what they're seeing and how we're coming alongside them and helping them, and hearing some of the stories that are coming out, whether it's coming on the news or whether we're hearing them firsthand, but just hearing them talk about how they're able to help folks. That's always moving for us, and always, it's the reason why we do what we do, partnering with the local church, making the local church the hero in the community. That's what we do. That's what we're about.
Yeah. Of all the stories you've heard so far, what's the one you keep telling?
I'll tell you, there's one that I heard. There was a young lady at the Camp Mystic. She was one of the older girls there, so apparently the older girls were in cabins that were farther up the hill. And she tells the story of when she came out of her cabin and she looked down the hill and saw that the water was rising, and she didn't know if it was going to come up that far, take her or take them at all. And the first thing that she thought of was to put her name tag on, because she said, if I died, I want them to know who I was.
Oh.
And after hearing that, I'm like, first of all, to hear her say that, but second of all, I don't even know that I would think to go grab my name tag or something like that in that moment. But she said, I wanted them to know who I was. Yeah, that's pretty unbelievable. That's a 15, 16-year-old girl saying that.
To have the presence of mind. Can't imagine. Stacy, I think all of us are really emotional hearing these stories coming out of Texas, but I also feel like these stories are drawing us closer to God, to the hope that we have after this life, and the peace that we can have now in the midst of such circumstances. So you were there, you were in Kerrville. Were you feeling God's peace?
Yeah. Yes, here's something that I saw yesterday. So as we're back at the local airport yesterday, the regional airport, that's where all of the SAR teams, the search and rescue teams, are all staged. So lots of folks from different branches of military, law enforcement, those type of things. So we're back in there yesterday afternoon, and it's very full. Many of them had been out through the day, so they were coming in and resting and those type of things. And I saw a gentleman over standing in the corner. He was on the phone, but he's in full fatigues and, geared up and all those type of things. And right in the middle of his chest, he had kind of a radio pouch, if you will. And right in the middle of that pouch, and this is what struck me, because you don't normally see something like that on military personnel. And right in the middle of that pouch, he had a patch made, and it said, "Jesus is King" on it. Oh. And I saw him standing over there, and I just thought to myself, that puts everything back in perspective for us, because, yes, he still is king, and even in the midst of all of this. So when I saw that, I'm like, this guy is down by the river, and, he's part of the search and rescue teams, and he's doing all of that. but he's got that message out there that Jesus is still king throughout all of this.
We all need that message right now, and I'm so glad you just delivered it. Stacy, in your experience there, did you have a chance to pray with anybody?
Yeah, just praying with the local pastors, helping them, just for strength, for helping them get through this. We see it disaster after disaster. The local church, they jump in. They want to work as hard as they can to help in their local community, which is understandable. But they can get wore out real fast. It can be very fatiguing, on them. You get the compassion fatigue. You get just overwhelmed with all that you're doing. So we're always wanting to build up, help strengthen, and, the local pastors, the local church. So, yes, being able to do that yesterday, pray with the local pastors for strength, for them to be able to get through this. And, again, that's just part of what Convoy does in coming alongside the local church.
That's such a beautiful thing that you all do. Stacy, I want to go back to the tangible hope that you all bring. I know you mentioned the hygiene items and the cleanup items. What are those practical needs you're meeting right now?
Yeah. So on the supply side, always the initial emergency supplies, food, water, hygiene items, baby items, baby kits, diapers, wipes, and all of the different things that go with that. And then, cleaning supplies or cleanup supplies, because while you have the folks that are displaced and they need the food and the water and things like that, you have folks that were affected from the standpoint of maybe their homes were flooded and now they're starting to figure out how to clean up. And so they need those supplies as well. So that's a lot of what we bring initially in situations like this.
Wow. You just got home. What is your perspective? Are you feeling more gratitude just for your life today? What's going through your mind and heart?
Yeah, like I mentioned a while ago, we can take a lot of things for granted because of our day-to-day, just what we do, whether we're sitting behind a desk, whether we work outside or whatever the case may be. And when you go and you see something, whether it's after a hurricane or after the floods in Texas or whatever the case may be, it does put it in perspective for you, especially if you're traveling internationally. You see something internationally and you go, man, we take so much for granted, especially here in the U.S. for different things. And it does kind of ground you, if you will, in those moments to go, we have a lot to be thankful for.
Well, man, I'm grateful for you. Stacy, from Convoy of Hope, I believe you all do sacred work and you do it in Jesus' name. Thank you. It's an honor to share your stories with our listeners.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us.